Hey Cletus, I do hope you're having a great day, brother. Hey man, it's story time. True story time. Nonetheless, it's story time, man. I got something to share with you. Hopefully it'll build your faith just a little bit. Anyway, back in the day, back in the late 90s, I had moved to Houston, and prior to that, I had been a carpenter. And I wanted a different kind of job, man, where I wasn't going to have to be out in the heat so much. And I got a job at this factory making thermocouples. And turned out that factory was just deadly hot inside, man. Wasn't much better than being out in the direct sunlight. Well, it didn't take too long. It was going to get worse because come July, we had to go out to one of the chemical plants, or one of the gas plants, and do a major installation and of the products that we made. And like I said, I think I said anyway, those products were thermocouples. And I don't know if you're familiar with what a thermocouple is, Cletus, but basically it's just an industrial thermometer. Okay? They make them in all kinds of different size, shapes, lengths for different ranges, whatever, man. Doesn't matter. Anyway, we had put a bunch of them together that had 22 points apiece on them, all in one big housing, and they were 11 different lengths, 11 on one side and 11 on the other. This plant that we had to go out to do this installation for, well, of course, everything is made out of metal out there. July, sun beaming down, buddy. It's hot outside, man. I wasn't too happy about this, and neither was anybody else. Well, where we had to install these was basically, being an old Navy man, I'm going to describe this the only way I know how. It was like 3 different submarines stood on end, lowest, middle, and tallest one. Each one had to have these 22 pointed thermocouples put in, and I couldn't even tell you how many of these bundles of these things we had to install. But at each level, we had to have one, and they had to be stabbed in through the side. And first thing we had to do was go inside, and their construction people had scaffolding built all the way to the top. We had to start at the top and work our way down. We get one level done, and they had to remove the scaffolding, move it down to the next level, so on and so on, till you got to the bottom. Well, I had this guy on our crew. He wasn't a fan of mine, needless to say. And I don't know if it was my personality or the fact that I'm a Christian or the combination of the two. You know what I've said before, I'll say it again, I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And you know what, bro? That's all right. It's all good, man. So, look, it was hot in there. It was hot outside of there. And all of these tubes, for lack of a better, containers, towers, whatever, the shortest one was probably 70, maybe 100 foot tall. I'm not real sure. Maybe exaggerating, certainly not trying to. Anyway, they were all connected by metal walkways around each one of them, so you could freely walk around them, and stairs going up and down on the outside. Had to have a crane stab these big heavy bad boys in through the side, but our first job inside, as I was saying, on the scaffolding system, was to attach a framework around the inside round side of these tubes that made it square. And they had to be bolted together, they all had to be leveled, and then eventually when they'd stab the thermocouples in through the side, we had to route each point out to its proper place, and they had to all fit within the parameters. Now you know, man. Okay? So, it was hot. And getting hotter and getting worse by the day, man. Anyway, this particular day come along, and this guy that he didn't like me very much started making fun of me. And he was partially mad for some reasons that had nothing to do with me. Crane operator wasn't his friend, and he thought he was in charge. And anyway, not trying to be rude, man. The cat had an attitude problem. I think we all deal with that from time to time, but he had an attitude problem. Anyway, he started running his mouth. And You Christians, blah, 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 all this, and cussing, and I'm not immune from that. I'm an old U.S. Navy sailor, and I certainly do know how to cuss and say things that I shouldn't and have attitudes that I shouldn't. And a lot of times have to actively choose to change my words. Anyway, he was giving me a hard time, and there was no rain in the forecast. I mean, I'm telling you straight up, there was no rain in the forecast. He starts running your mouth. He goes, yeah, why don't you just go over the other side of this thing? Why don't you call on your God and see if he can make it rain? I said, yeah. I said, if he does, will you believe then and change your attitude? Yeah, man, I will. Okay. All right. So I walked around the other side of this thing and went up one flight level, put my arms over the rail, and was looking off into the sky, man. I said, God, what you gonna do about this? You hear the way this guy's talking about you? He goes, he ain't talking about me, he's talking about you. He said, what you gonna do about it? I said, Lord, what am I gonna do about it? Ain't nothing I can do about it. Are you kidding me? I mean, I could go fight the guy, put my fist down his throat, all that good stuff, and what good's that gonna do? What's that gonna solve? Gonna get arrested, gonna go to jail, gonna lose my job, blah, 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 all that good stuff. No point in all this, man. He said, yeah, what you gonna do about it? I said, again, Lord. I mean, I'm hearing him speak to me, and this was pretty new to me, if you want to know the truth. Grew up in church, and that's a whole different story, man. Whole different story, Cletus. Anyway, I'm literally hearing God in my spirit. And he say to me again, my child, he said, what you gonna do about it? I'm like, again, God, what am I supposed to do about it? He said, you see that little cloud up in the sky? I'm like, nah, don't go Old Testament with me, man. I remember that story. Don't go Old Testament with me, Lord. He goes, you see that cloud up in the sky? I said, yeah. He said to me, he said, speak to that cloud, my child. He said, remember, for assuredly I say unto you, whoever says to this mountain, be thou removed and cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes those things which he says will come to pass, shall have whatsoever he says. That's Mark 11:23, specifically the New King James Version. And I said, God, you want me to do what? He said, speak to that cloud. I said, no. He said, speak to the cloud. Well, at this point, I was just crazy enough. I used to use the word foolish enough. Whatever, man. Crazy enough, bright enough, wise enough, smart enough. Whichever words you want to choose. I said, okay, Father. Okay, I hear you. I hear you. Now, remembering some of the story, I forgot too. So I hear you, Lord. I'll speak to that cloud. Cloud, I speak to you. And I choose today to believe the words coming out of my mouth. Because at this point, I've already seen enough. Cloud, I speak to you in the mighty name of Jesus under the authority that God has given me. And I command you to bring forth rain. I command you to bring forth rain so much that we have to go home today. Now here's part of the part that I forgot to tell you. When there's a thunderstorm in a refinery, it shuts down. And they send everybody home because stuff just got real and it gets dangerous, man. Well, this cat had said to me, realize, it's 9 a.m. It's 9 o'clock in the morning and it's already boiling hot down on the coast, bro. Already boiling like a champ, man. I want it to rain, and I want it to rain by 11 o'clock. He said, and I want it to be so bad that we have to go home. Now, you got to remember, at this point, there was nothing but a tiny little cloud off in the sky, off in the distance, off to the southwest of us at the time. Okay? And I said, okay, God. That cloud, you're going to rain. You're going to bring us a storm. You're going to do it. It's going to happen. going to be the deal. So I boldly walked back around the other side of this thing. I said, I prayed. He said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Still running his mouth. Okay. I went on about my business. Climbed back in the hole to get inside this vertical submarine to go do my job, man. And it wasn't long after that, I hear somebody say, hey, man, the sky is clouding up, man. And by 10 o'clock, I was outside of that thing and the sirens were going off. And even 10 minutes before that, bro, 10 minutes before, the sky was black and churning, man, and coming in, and storm was coming in from the south. I was like, what? Are you kidding me, dog? Really? No, we're calling God dog. It was calling the storm dog. Looking at this dude like, huh? All of a sudden now the sirens are going off. Off in the distance. Hi-ya! Whoop, whoop, whoop. Shut her down. Time to go. They cruised us up out of there, sent us home real quick. We went back to our shop a good 20, 25 miles away. And we're standing outside. And as soon as we walk back in and everything, the power goes out there. You gotta realize, down in Pasadena, Texas, streets pretty flat. Everything was flooded, man. Already, just from there to here, flooded. From Baytown to Pasadena, flooded, man. But me and this cat were standing outside with the rest of the crew that had been out to this refinery. He said, man, what you gonna do next? Walk on water? I said, well, if the Lord allows, man. That may sound arrogant, but that was what I said. And I said, so you coming to church tonight like you said? And he goes, yeah, I'll be there. Well, guess who did not show up that night? He did. And guess who went out to the bar that night and got drunk? He did. Guess who got a DWI on his way home that night? He did. Guess who lost his job that next day? He did. Anyway, a few days later, the young adult singles group that I met my wonderful wife at, shout out to you, lover. We used to go out to eat as a group after church and after our young adult singles groups that we had. And anyway, I was telling the story about what happened. And there was this one guy who goes, don't you think that's a little arrogant? I said, no. I asked God what to do. And he responded to me. And then I spoke his word. And I did what it was that he told me to do. So he told me, he said, do this, say this. He didn't. Yes, he does. If you're listening, when you learn his voice. You know what I learned, Cletus, that day? You know what I learned? It wasn't about his faith, it was about mine. Now, some of y'all, and you, Cletus, you may have figured that out already. But the truth is, it wasn't about his faith being built that day. It was about mine. So I would ask you to consider, Cletus. Start speaking to your clouds. Start speaking to your mountains. Start believing what the Word of God says is the truth. And start putting action to it, man. You might be surprised by some of the results that you get. God might absolutely astound you and amaze you, my brother. All right, so let's move forward, man. Shall we proceed? I think we shall. Talk to you soon. Have a great day. God bless. Broham's Supreme Degrodification Bars are natural soap for men and boys. Don't be grody. Grab a chunk and lose the funk at brohams.org.